Well, hello everybody. I'm Cliff and this is Life with MS. Welcome to 2025. Now, I've been offline for about 3 weeks with a nasty respiratory issues going on here, and if you've been keeping track, you would know I had a respiratory thing before that just never seemed to resolve. I ended up going to the ER with lung things going on. It was kind of a mess. Then my wife got it and it became a real show over the holiday. Anyway, we had to cancel our vacation, whole thing. I got my glasses tilted up here because if I don't, all you see is my lights. So I'm going to tilt those up a little bit there. And if you see behind me, I'm currently working on a project on my 3D printer, but I wanted to talk to you guys about something really important. And that is, what did 2024 teach me about my MS, life, and also really pouring a lot of time into this YouTube channel. Now, I wrote all this stuff down because there's a lot of it. So these are like the top 10 things I took away from 2024 that I think I'm going to take into 2025, make some adjustments, and see how things work out. But there were some interesting key learning points. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number one, and these aren't really in order of importance, there's just 10 of them. I think they're all super important. And a lot of these have to do with some of the comments and feedback that I received from people that have been watching my videos. And I think one that really stuck out was there's a lot of people with MS that don't have access to things like the DMTs, like Kesimpta or Ocrevus for their multiple sclerosis. And that super sucks. And I was in that situation in 2024. And what I did was I was between insurance providers. I called the Novartis, who makes Kesimpta, their Novartis Patient Assistant Program, and got on their program, and I received the stuff at no cost for a year. Now, I did get abruptly kicked off it at the end of that year, which caused quite a bit of chaos to get remedied, but that's a story for another time. But my point to you out there is, what I learned is there is a way. There is always a way. If it's not going to work with Kesimpta, maybe it's going to work with Ocrevus through Genentech or something, but there are options. So if you're not getting your DMTs and you feel like you're progressing, and even if you don't feel like you're progressing, you probably should be on a DMT according to your doctor. I don't know. I'm just a patient. You can find a way. And if you're still confused about it, reach out to me. I can help a little bit because I have experience with navigating that stuff a little bit. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the Novartis program because it worked really well for me. Please ask me questions if you have them. Don't delay. This is a messed up disease. Don't give it any advantage in time. So that's number one. There is always a way. So even without insurance, you can make it happen. Number two, this YouTube channel has been insanely therapeutic for me. And I have to thank everybody out there for that. I mean, this has been great. Like, I didn't expect this at all. I was going to start the channel up and just talk about my experiences. And what happened was, like, I'm learning more from you guys than I think I could ever actually share myself. And I feel a lot less alone. Now, I did a video about this being a very lonely, if not the loneliest disease. I'll link that below and you can kind of see my rant about that. And a lot of you reached out and said, you're not alone. Like, we're going to get through this. And I can't even believe, like, it's such a powerful platform, this YouTube thing, for making someone like myself feel like I have a community. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like, this has been huge. And it really made my 2024 special, each and every one of you. And I might be tearing up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's my MS. No, I don't tear up. I don't cry. Yeah, I do. I'm a mess. I'm a hot, emotional mess most of the time. So thank you again. It has been awesome. And I will continue to do this. And maybe the community will grow, but there's so many people out there with so many great stories and so much great feedback that I just look forward to hearing from you guys all the time. So I love making the videos because I feel like I'm speaking directly to you. Hi. Number three, This has been interesting because while my disease is clinically stable, according to my very lengthy MRIs this year, my symptoms are getting worse. And I thought I was losing my mind and that my DMTs were not working. And you guys reached out and you said, no, this is how it works. Like some people in here that are long haulers on this form said, oh, yeah, I've had MS for 20, 30 years. And while it's clinically stable at this point, the symptoms continue to get worse and continue to suck. So I'm not losing my mind. Well, I am losing my mind. I lost my mind a long time ago. But like the fact that you guys could share that information with me and let me know that like there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason as to why the disease slows in clinical progression, but seems to accelerate in personal symptoms is, as an engineer, it's mind-boggling to me how that functionally works. I am so happy for you to reach out to me and tell me that this is a thing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you are experiencing that as well, guess what? You're not alone. It's happening to people. Oh, this is great. Number 4, no is like saying yes with MS. Now, what do I mean by that? I have learned in 2024 that it's okay to say no and not feel guilty about it. And one of these examples was my son wanted to go to a water park and it was hot that day. Anything above 75 is hot to me, and it was like 90. But this was also an indoor water park. And I really struggled with it because I love spending time with my family and it sounded like a ton of fun. But I realized like if I go to that venue and it is not ideal for this messed up condition, I am going to be miserable and I'm going to make them miserable. And even if I'm not trying to make them miserable, they're going to feel like crap for me and they're going to be miserable. So I said, no, I'm not going with you guys. I'm just going to stay behind. I'm going to do my own thing. Go enjoy yourself and have fun. Now, the interesting part of that is my wife got there and she said, this place is insanely hot. You would have been just a mess, like a multiple sclerosis MS mess. And I thought, thank goodness. So they did that for an afternoon and then they came home and I was perfectly able to do things with my son and my wife the rest of the week because I didn't make a poor decision and I decided to say no to something that would have put me in a really bad situation, which would have taken me probably a week to recover from. So I'm getting better at saying no, which is like my yes, saying yes to other opportunities by saying no to opportunities that are going to really put me in a horrible situation. Does that make sense? So no is the new yes with MS. That's got to be, I'm going to make that a t-shirt or something. I don't know. What do you think? Comment below. Okay, number 5. So a few weeks ago, I ended up going to the ER because I could not breathe. Turns out I could breathe, but my brain didn't think I could breathe because the signals were not getting to my brain. And while all my telemetry in my body was doing okay, I felt like I was suffocating to death. Well, it turned out to be the MS hug. A ton of muscles in the intercostal area just cramping up and going crazy. And I didn't know if it was a heart attack or if it was MS related. I ended up going in an ambulance there, getting stabilized, doing the whole thing. And there was a part of me in the past, and I talked about this in the past episode, that would have said I overreacted. But I don't think that way anymore. Because what if it wasn't MS related? What if it was actually like a heart attack and I would have wrote it off as MS? Going forward in 2025, I'm not just going to blindly write everything off as MS as I used to. Like, I need to be more aware of what's going on with me. I'm not young anymore. And things like heart attacks happen to people in their late 40s and early 50s. I'm going to be less guilty about being overly sensitive to my situation, knowing what I know now. I hope that makes sense. By the way, this is just random, but ever since I started Kesimpta, my hair growth on my face is completely uneven. You can't really see it today, but sometimes I have a big patch of like hair here, but none here. It's just bizarre. And then I look back over the years, just a few years ago, it was never that way. And maybe it's age, I don't know, but it started when I started the new DMT. Related or not? We don't know. Number 6, stop expecting people to understand and ask them to listen instead. This is a huge one, and it will be a topic of an entire video here in the future. I don't think, as a patient, anyone can really understand this disease unless they have it or they have something like it. And it used to really just drive me crazy. And in all of 2024, I was trying to figure out, how am I going to talk to people that don't have my disease? And they say, oh, yeah, I understand. No, you don't understand. You can't understand. In my mind, you can't understand because you're not in my shoes. You don't live with me. The closest person to me that does not have my disease, that would understand any inkling of what I go through on a daily basis, is my wife and my kid. And that's because they live here with me, and my border collie, wherever she is. So moving forward, I am asking people that are around me not to try to understand, because I don't even understand it all. I'm asking them just to listen when they ask. Just listen. I don't even expect a reply. I don't need to know about new diets. I don't need to hear about celebrities that have just been diagnosed. Thank you very much. That shows some level of awareness of the situation. You cannot and will never understand. And that goes for my doctors. Like, they don't understand how I feel. So moving forward in 2025, you don't have to understand anything. You just have to listen. How easy is that? And we will all get along just fine. Makes sense? I hope. Comment below if you've run into the same thing. Like, I often get the, yeah, I understand. One of my favorite things, and I won't go off on a tirade on this real quickly. One of my favorite things this year was someone who said, oh, I understand. And so when are you going to get over it? And I thought to myself, well, that's an interesting perspective. And I had to explain to them, this is not something you get over. They thought it was something like the flu. And that's okay, right? They're not as deep in the trenches as we are. They don't understand how it functions. But then I asked them, don't try to understand it, because a lot of people don't. Even the people working on it don't really understand it. We're just doing what we can to manage it. And if you want to ask me about it, go ahead and just listen. But I don't expect you to understand. Number 7 is focus less on explaining and more on communicating, which will yield better results with those around me. I used to just explain to people how the MS affected me at like a biological level, because I'm an engineer. That's how I communicate with folks. That does not work with MS, I've learned. I have to keep things very high level and not drag them down into my world. They just have to listen to what I have to say about it. I don't expect them to understand. So I'm working on that communication. I guess that kind of rolls back into the one I just talked about, number 6. But communication in this disease is core, which is ironic because the whole reason the disease affects us the way it does is because our nerves don't communicate. So it's amazing that we can communicate at any capacity with anything around us when the very thing that's responsible for communicating with the world around us, our body, our minds, and our being, is kind of shorting out all the time. Number 8, and this goes with the communication, I'm going to be me. And that's what you're going to get. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm feeling a way that I'm not, even though I'm going to try to maintain a positive outlook on things and try to be positive. I'm not going to fake it anymore. I went to an event in 2024. It was a party of sorts, and it was with a bunch of people I didn't know. I was not feeling great that day, but I had to show up. I should have just said no, but I wasn't there yet. And I was very uncomfortable in my own skin because of what was going on. These people knew nothing about me, and I was very honest with them when they asked stuff. And I could tell a lot of people became very uncomfortable with the situation. And I thought that was interesting. And then that carried over for the next several months. When I saw those people again, they treated me totally different. Like I was an oddity and they didn't understand where I was coming from. And I've realized there's 2 sets of groups: the people that will accept a situation they don't understand and they will go through with it. And then there's people like me that want nothing to do with a situation they don't understand because they're probably analytical or control freaks. And I personally will work as hard as I can to understand a situation. So I get that. I understand that mentality. But the people that I think help me thrive are the ones that don't need explanations and they don't need to understand things. So that's number 8. Surround myself with people that don't need all the answers, because I don't have them. I'm just trying to get through the day. Number 9. There is a deep, safe space in me, and it has nothing to do with my physical being. And I forgot that, and I lost sight of that for a number of years up until like the last month. And I always had it when I was younger, and I don't know why I lost sight of it. Maybe I got too comfortable for a while and my MS just pushed me back into it. But what do I mean by this? I grew up in Northern California, and I used to surf big, cold, scary, rocky waves like they were nothing. It was just my normal backyard. I didn't think anything of it. We would go out on huge, cold days, and we would get pounded by the surf, and we would get held down. It was just our reality. My friends and I would that's what we did. It was like riding bikes. And one survival mechanism I developed in doing big wave surfing in really treacherous places like that was to, when I was pushed down by a wave and I had no control of the situation, I covered my head to make sure I didn't get like some kind of concussion from hitting the bottom or running into a rock or something. And I remember going to a space inside my body thinking, I'm going to eventually float to the top. It may not be now. It may not be in 30 seconds. It may not be a minute. It will happen. And the worst thing I can do in that situation is panic, because it'll burn up my oxygen supply and I will still be underwater and I won't know where I'm at. So I just got to go with the process. And after the ER visit, I realized like I was finding that space again. Like it was a messed up situation. And then it became familiar when I found that space inside myself where like my physical body's not okay, but my mind is still functional and I can handle the situation at hand. I guess some people would call it meditation of sorts, but it's a way to find clarity in severe chaos. And I never applied that to multiple sclerosis before. And it just hit me like a reckoning the other day after I got out of the ER. I'm like, wow, I found that space again. And I've used it twice since. And it's a way to disconnect from my reality, calm my body. So I guess in a sense, it sort of is like a meditation. And if I find myself in a situation, again, where I can't breathe, just like I was when I was going to the ER, and also when I was stuck underwater 20 feet from a huge wave, I just had to think about myself in the moment, dig deep, and know things were going to work out. And that really calmed me down. Even when I couldn't physically breathe, it calmed me down. Well, I don't know if you've found that kind of experience doing something else, but I've found it very empowering. So share below if you've had an experience like that. It's a zone. That's what I mean. It's a zone of peace. Where do you find your zone of peace when you're at your worst and you need to escape this and focus on what's in here? Comment below. I would really like to hear that. Number 10, my MS isn't getting better or easier, and I can't pretend that it is, so I'm not going to. I look okay, but I'm not, and I need to be at peace with that. And in 2025, I'm going to work at being at peace with that. And it's going to be a work in progress. There are days where I'm super frustrated, and there are days I want to do things that I can't do. And it sucks, and it's very depressing, but I need to find my peace, and I need to be okay with it, because I think the worse and the more I fight it, the worse it's going to make the MS, because it adds stress to my life. Anyway, I hope some of this made sense. 2024 was a crazy year. 2025, I think, is going to be interesting and maybe a lot more fun. It'll be interesting to see how these 10 things help or hinder. What have you done in 2024 that you're taking into 2025? I would love to know about it, because I think it could be really cool to hear. And I appreciate you all. This channel has been so much fun and so much work and so rewarding that I'm going to continue to keep doing it. I've got some new projects on the hoppers back here. I'm really excited to share those with you. They're way more engineering focused, but there's a huge MS component to it. I can't share too much yet, but I can soon. And I just want to say thank you. Happy start to your new year. I'm thinking about you guys all the time. I'm Cliff. This is Life with MS. Click that like if you found value in this, and share this with people that may not have MS. Maybe they'll understand you better. I'm out.